Good afternoon, everybody. My name is David Stokes, Director of Municipal Policy at the Show Me Institute, here to speak about the property tax aspect of the bill. I'm not going to repeat what my colleague and friend Patrick just said about the stadium issue beyond seconding everything he said. I've given out my detailed comments of it. I'm not going to read it, of course. I'm not going to repeat everything in it, but I do think that the property tax aspect of this bill, which was put on the floor of the Senate, there was no public hearing on it, is deeply flawed, very ill-conceived, and I think in the long run, very harmful. And I say that as somebody who likes low taxes, and I'm not here advocating for high property taxes, but I think this is a very bad plan that was rushed through. And I'm just going to hit on a few key points and then happy to take any questions. First of all, the constitutional aspect has come up several times. One of you all earlier requested for a constitutional reading on supporting stadiums. So I do believe that this property tax proposal is definitely unconstitutional, and I'm going to read the exact part from the Constitution, where it says in Chapter 10, Section 3, taxes may be levied and collected for public purposes only, and shall be uniform upon the same class or subclass of subjects within the territorial limits of the authority levying the tax. Meaning that all the residential property in a school district, that would be the subclass, and the unit collecting it, should be collected and assessed in the same way. I give two examples off the top of my head. I'm sure there's scores around the state of Missouri, where Rockwood School District and Merrimack Valley School District, which are in multiple counties, St. Louis, Jefferson, and Franklin. And those counties, Merrimack Valley is in all three of them. Those counties will be treated very differently under this system for taxation. And I don't know how you read this and interpret that as an unconstitutional act. And yes, if this passes, which I hope it does not, I would hope somebody would sue to get that part overturned. As for the comparisons to the previous question of the senior property tax amendment, look, I hope somebody sues to overturn that as well. I think that's just a portion of the property, so it's not, in the short run, hasn't proven to be an enormous amount of money for taxing districts. I think in the long run it will be. But nobody sued in the short run. But this will be an enormous impact very quickly for these caps, for these counties that have 0%, and I do believe that some local government entities would sue, and I think they would win. And I don't think that the legislators should just look askance at that and say the courts will take care of it. So, but there's many other issues with this proposal. These hard caps, especially in these many counties that are 0%, yes, that will make it easier to live in your home for a long time. That will keep your property taxes low. I don't understand why somebody who lives in a house for 10 years and it's the same size home with the same value as somebody who bought it the year before, I don't understand why they should pay different taxes, but perhaps they should. But in California, where they have very strict property tax caps that do benefit, admittedly, long-term homeowners, there's also been a large number of negative side effects, including, I'm going to read this part here, reduced mobility as people choose not to move because they've got the special deal sort of caked in. Dramatically increased alternative taxes. That is, California is not a low tax state. It's a very high tax state. They have some low property taxes. Limited home ownership opportunities, again, people hesitant to move, and causing substantial tax disparities for similar properties receiving similar services. All of those are what we will see in Missouri, particularly in the zero cap counties, and to a slightly lesser extent in these 5% counties. If we want to create economic growth through the tax system for the state of Missouri, property taxes are the last thing we should be targeting. And I've got a table that cites a number of studies in the printout I gave you. I think inevitably this will have certain negative impacts. One is that it's going to increase pressure to raise assessments and then thereby property taxes on non-residential property, including multifamily buildings not included in these protections, and commercial property especially. I think you're going to see an increase of new sales taxes, increases in sales tax rates, and perhaps worst of all, new sales tax districts because of this. Like, the last thing we need is more transportation development districts and more community improvement districts around the state, but you'll have an explosion of them to make up for these property tax limits. And finally, and the last point I really want to stress on, and then I'll wrap up, is that if you're going to make local governments, but I'm going to focus on school districts here, if you're going to make them less dependent on local property taxes, which I think are the primary way they should be funded, then they're going to be more dependent on state income taxes through the foundation formula. And you're going to be making it more difficult to lower our state income tax over time. And that is the tax that harms economic growth in our state. That's the tax we should be targeting and focused on lowering, not property taxes. There are elements of reform that need to be done. I'll wrap up 10 seconds. It's, of course, crazy that Jackson County, which has by far the worst system in the state, is not included in any reforms at all. I'm not saying it should have these, but it should have some. And with that, I'm happy to wrap up and take any questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Yes, Representative Wilson.
To inquire, Madam Chair.
Proceed.
Mr. Stokes, thank you for being here. Sorry about that. Now I can see you a little better. So in this particular bill, one of the counties listed at the 0% category is St. Charles County. I represent the city of St. Charles within St. Charles County. The question I have is, how does someone in my position vote no on this bill, knowing that my county is going to be negatively impacted by my no vote?
Well, I'm not a politician, so I'm not going to try to explain your vote either way. That's not my role, and I would probably give horrible advice anyway. Right, I think that, yes, I understand. I get that property taxes aren't popular. Probably because a lot of people, you own your home outright, you're a senior, it's the giant bill you pay each year, it's the one tax you see in bulk. They're not popular for lots of reasons, and that's fine. And I do understand that in political office, you're going to have people who don't care whether it's when I'm citing about economic growth, the average person who's writing a check might not care much about that. They just want their property taxes lower. So I would propose that in the long run, you try to explain to people that there's going to be real harms from this. And yes, some people will benefit. If you stay in your home a long time and your property taxes are frozen, your property tax bill won't go up very much. And I get that if voters approve a tax increase, that's included. But it'll stay steady. But I know that in the long run, other taxes are going to be raised to do that. Maybe school districts will seek authority to impose a sales tax, which school districts right now, with a few exceptions, don't have. So all of a sudden there'll be a school district sales tax authority, or there'll be new TDDs, new CIDs. There'll be no more reduction of the state's income tax, as all that money is now needed to fund schools throughout Missouri, particularly in rural Missouri. So there's a lot of problems that will come from this in the long run. And then there's just the fairness argument. Again, I don't understand, and I said this for the senior property tax increase, and obviously this body didn't agree with me, but I don't know why two families that live next door to each other in the same sized house, receiving the same government services in a house worth the same amount of money, should be paying different property tax rates. I'd like those rates to be low for both. I realize that's not happening. I think the Jackson County situation over the past 10 years has been a unique disaster, and I do think the changes need to be made in Jackson County. But throwing out Missouri's whole tax system, whole property tax system, right now, I think this has been rushed through. I think there are nuggets within the 5% limit category. There are portions of that can form, I think, a starting point for good long-term reforms. But I don't want to. That's where I'll go with that. And thank you for your question.
Thank you, sir.
Additional question? Seeing none. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, everyone.
Are there